Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Whenever you come across this, thank you so much for choosing to spend a little bit of time with us. This is Real Talk with Real People. And today we have an anonymous family member with us. She's choosing to keep her identity to herself just for personal reasons, but she did want to share a story because she felt that it could be helpful to others. So I will go ahead and just pass the mic over. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing, some of your time with us. And yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Just as you said, I'm doing this just in case it helps other people. It's been a difficult road, but as I have progressed through life and found God, because Lord knows, He had me the whole time, I just didn't have Him.
Mm.
And so I literally give Him all the glory, all the praise. So yeah, if any part of the story helps another person, that's all I wish for.
That's perfect.
So basically, starting out from the beginning, I have a stepbrother, or I'm sorry, a half brother who is about a year and a half younger than I am. When he was about a year and a half and I was about three, our mom was murdered.
Mm.
Um, she was coming home one evening with a friend, and my brother's dad had broken into her house and was waiting for her. And as soon as she opened the door, he immediately killed the person she was with. She took off running, ran down the stairs, and she lived in an apartment building, ran out of the apartment building, and he chased after her, jumped on her, killed her, and then killed himself. Yeah. So my grandparents were loving enough to keep us both in the family. So thank God, um, we were each placed with two different aunts in our family. So it's kind of like, and I was placed with them, just shortly thereafter. And so from this point forward, I will say my mom, but when I say that, I'm referring to my adopted mom, who's my biological aunt.
Okay.
Um, and then, I'll say my biological mom if I'm talking about my biological mom. But
Perfect.
anyway, my brother and I were placed with two different aunts in the family. And it was not easy for either of us. It's really crazy because we had this big loving family, and it's just dysfunctional just like everybody else's. But I can remember going to my grandma's on Sundays and having get-togethers and having lunches and going fishing and doing fun stuff. But then individually behind closed doors, he and I both were in abusive homes.
Mm.
um, my mom, which again is my aunt,
Mhm.
um, she was very, very young. I didn't realize until I was probably in my mid 30s how young she really was. And I truly, looking back now, can look at myself and realize the victim mentality that I lived my life with for
Mm.
most of the years. But going back, um, nobody in my family ever, ever, ever talked about my biological mom. It was taboo to talk about her. If her name got mentioned, well, I have a couple different stories about her name actually being mentioned. Um, in particular, I remember one time when I had to be 9 or younger because of where we lived. My cousins I have older cousins, and they had accidentally spilled the beans and told me that what had happened to my biological mom and that my parents weren't my parents. And so late one night, I was at home and I was super duper nervous, but I got up the nerve to mention it to my mom, and she went haywire on me. She just went ballistic. How could you possibly even think about that? How could you want to see? What do you want to see? Pictures? It was absolutely terrifying. What's wrong with you? Just really shamed me to the nth degree, about even wanting to ask questions or know anything about her. Um, so until I was in my mid-20s, I had never really talked to anybody about her. I shouldn't say never. There were a few instances, but it wasn't until my mid-20s that I found someone that talked to me more about her. But my mom that raised me was extremely physically abusive, mentally abusive. I felt very, I felt like the outsider. She and my dad, my uncle, biological uncle, they had problems getting pregnant.
Mm,
And so they tried for years and years to get pregnant. And then once they did, when I was about 10, 11 years old, they had two kids within 4 years when I was like 10 or 11, and then about 14. Um, I felt like the outsider. I felt like a burden my entire life. Um, I felt like, I don't know. I don't think I need to explain it any differently. I felt like the outsider. I felt like a burden. Those were their kids. I was not.
mm,
Um, Treated very, very differently. Thank God, though, I had the wisdom when I got a little bit older to stand up for them.
mm,
They didn't receive the same exact treatment that I did. They got disciplined. They didn't get abused. Um, I there were times when I can remember being at my grandma's, and if I asked to spend the night, or if I asked for a cookie, or God forbid I bring up, my biological mom's name or anything, if I did anything unsatisfactory, she would grab me by the hair and just like grit her teeth and say things in my ear. And there were times when she backhanded me and hit me in the teeth with her ring, and just very, very physically abusive. I'm not, no. Yes, she was physically abusive, but for me, I believe the bigger impact came from the psychological.
mhm,
That much worse. Um, I remember one time I was very, very, very scared of her. Everything that happened in the house, regardless of how it happened or what happened or who did it, I was always walking on eggshells, waiting for, waiting to take the blame, waiting for the consequences. I felt like everything that went wrong was my fault. Um, I remember one time I came home from school. I was in high school, and I was in like this honors English class, and my English teacher was absolutely awesome, and we were able to journal. Well, we weren't able to, we were made to journal, and she told us that we could write about anything we wanted to, and she would keep it 100% confidential unless there was anything, harmful to ourselves or harmful to someone else. We could use it as an outlet. So Lord, did I take advantage of that.
mm,
So that was my outlet. I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And one day, little brother, who's my cousin, biological cousin, because he was so much younger, I was in high school, he wasn't yet in kindergarten. And he had been in my room, and he brought that notebook out to the living room, or brought it out to my mom. And I didn't know this at the time, but I came home from school, and she was bent over the kitchen counter. And again, it's one of those households where, well, school was my refuge. Like, that's where I had friends, and that's where I could be myself. And my personality was completely different. Home was the complete opposite. I would come home, go straight to my room, do my homework, listen to music, do whatever. Um, so when I walked in and saw her bent over the counter, there was never this, "Oh, hey, honey, how was your day?" You
mm,
know, it was the awkwardness of, what are you going to say until you can get to your bedroom? So she's bent over the counter, and I can tell she's crying and she's writing something, and I have no clue what's going on. Um, Typical fight or flight mode. I'm, pardon the phrase, nervous as a dog shitting peach seeds, and am thinking, oh my God, what have I done now? And then it's this battle of, but I couldn't have done anything wrong because I try to be so perfect. I get perfect grades and I clean the house, and what could I possibly have done wrong?
mhm,
So she wouldn't answer me. I finally gave up. I went in my room and laid down, and I'm about ready to throw up, wondering what I could have done. A few minutes later, I don't know, it could have been 2 hours. I don't know. She opened my door and flung the notebook at me
Mm,
and said, she may have been your mother, but she was my sister.
mm,
And I was just so floored by the concept of telling someone, how could you possibly feel that way about your mom when I knew her longer and she was my sister and best friend? And I don't know. So, anyway,
mhm,
that was one memory that I will never, ever forget, obviously. Um, there were times when, yeah, I was really close with one of my cousins, and it's crazy because everybody in the family saw it except for her, you know.
mhm,
Um, and my brother, the house that he was in, his dad or our biological uncle was an alcoholic, beat up on my aunt, his mom, and him only. The other two kids didn't get touched. They were perfect children. They were catered to. Um, he was physically abused and knocked downstairs with hockey sticks up his nose, like went to hit him with a hockey stick. And I think he broke his nose. I don't remember in particular, but knocked him down this, all this stuff. So we
mhm,
grew up in very, very difficult homes aside from what we had already been through.
mhm,
Um, but it's crazy because I can remember just like I said, hating being there at all times, but yet she wouldn't really let me get out of her sight. Like I couldn't spend the night at friends' houses very often. Maybe on the rare occasion, I could spend the night with my grandparents. So my biological grandma was one of my best friends until the day she died. Well, she still is actually.
mhm,
I know she's there for me. And there are times when, messages come through that I just absolutely know are her.
mhm,
But gosh, I don't even know what I was going to say about that now. Um, oh, so my mom was killed in April of the year I was 3.
mhm,
And growing up, I can remember looking through like wedding albums and whatnot of my parents, my adopted parents' wedding. And again, not giving it much thought, I remember thinking, gosh, even in her wedding, she's not happy. Like, what the hell? How can you not be happy on your wedding? And it wasn't until I was in my mid 30s that it hit me. They got married in June after my mom was killed in April.
mm,
And the moment I had the realization that she was supposed to be in the wedding, she was supposed to be there, the tragedy of it all. No, and I mean, I remember thinking, Shannon, you selfish, how could you be so selfish not to realize the impact of? So that epiphany was pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, so life was really, really, really hard. I had good relationships, with my friends and with all my other aunts and my cousins and everything. So really it was isolated to just the house. Well, one time I was I won't go into that whole story. That might be too revealing, but I found my biological dad. And one of my aunts had opened up to me and told me that she thought she knew who my biological dad was. And so through a crazy story, I did find him, and he turned out to be, a great resource as far as telling me lots of things about my mom, about how awesome she was and how friendly and outgoing and, great person out this, that, and the other wonderful things that you need to hear,
mhm,
uh, songs that she liked and how much she loved to cook. I found that out, because I love to cook and I love to bake. So it was kind of cool to hear that she would just cook meals or things for people. But as it turned out, I my relationship with him sort of dropped off. He's an alcoholic, and so it got to the point for various reasons that I just couldn't stay connected with him for the sanity of my boys, my family.
mhm,
So anyway, I did find him, and he has told me more about her than anybody else. So I was grateful for that connection at the time. Um, but I think so. I am overweight, and I know that that has a lot to, I think it stems from the trauma, you know.
Mhm.
And growing up, my mom would say things along the lines of, "Oh, look at her. She's lost weight. Now she thinks she's hot stuff." And just these derogatory, shameful things. And so I think another element, not only was food my friend, because that's what I had when I was at home, but then also knowing that, oh gosh, she would say those things about me if I ever lost weight. So I feel like I'm all over the board here, not really staying focused on any one thing, but I recognize now certain things that I know had to have stemmed from the trauma.
Mhm. Yeah, no,
Um,
you're doing a great job.
well, it's crazy because you live it, and it's your lifetime of things. And
Mhm.
then when you sit down to talk about it, it's like it leaves your mind.
Mhm.
I should have written some things down, but how I came to know God is, I had some really good friends at a job, and I had been searching and seeking for something. I knew that there was something out there that I needed, and I was feeling so empty and lost, and I could just feel being pulled. I just didn't know toward what. I had, taken gone to the local namaste center, and I had tried learning about Buddhism and just different things. Well, these two women at my job, we all stayed after work for different reasons one night, and we got to talking, and they sort of cornered me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They didn't trap me by any means, but they kept asking me to give myself over to God, and I was very, very resistant. I was uncomfortable. I was resistant. It just felt like that wasn't where I was supposed to do it. Where I was supposed to do it, I sure the hell don't know. But in my mind, time, it wasn't there and then. So anyway, it was heavy, to say the least. So they did. They relented. They let me go. We all went our separate ways. Well, excuse me, as soon as I got in the car and I'm driving home, I can remember exactly where I was, and I was bawling my eyes out. And I just started talking to God, and I said, Lord, if this is you, I need a sign from you right now. This is crazy. I feel like you are right here with me, but I need a sign from you. And I looked up, and there was a billboard, and it was a real estate sign, and it said, "Here's the sign you've been looking for." And then I just started dying laughing. Like it was one of those Bruce Almighty moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
the truck of signs right in front of you.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, that was sort of like the beginning. And then later in life, and I was probably mid-20s at that point. Later in life, maybe about 10 years later, I'd read a couple different books back to back, and one was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Mhm.
And just the succession of the books that I had read, I was just feeling this stirring like there's no tomorrow. Well, my husband at the time and the boys had gone over to their grandma's house, and I was home alone, and I'm just immersed in the power of now. And there are pieces of it that are so heavy that you sort of have to read it and reread it to digest it. And I had an epiphany, and there was a breakthrough, and I just bawled my eyes out. And it was when he was talking about, you know, the ego wants you to be miserable. Misery loves company. And um, holding on to everything that has ever hurt you and everybody that has ever hurt you serves absolutely no purpose except to keep you in that state of misery. And it sounds, significantly less impactful now. And Lord knows he did a better job of saying it than I am. But in the moment, I was sitting in my living room, and I felt like the center of the universe. I was bawling my eyes out because I knew it made me realize that I'm going to see my mom again. You can't change the past. There's nothing we can do to change the past. It's done and over with. And she would want me to be happy. She would want me to live my life as happy and joyful as possible. So that really was the most, that was the biggest turning point for sure. And just ever since then, not living like a victim and not, focusing on the people who have hurt you and learning to forgive them, that sort of thing. So fast forward all these years later, even up until 2 years ago, I've had a very difficult relationship with my mom. I chose really to avoid her. That was easier for me to deal with because I'm one of those people that if there's something wrong, we have to talk about it. And like, okay, I'll give you a little bit of time, but I I don't like hard feelings. I don't like people being upset about it. Like life's too short. Can we just talk about I'll apologize for what I did if you tell me what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that sort of thing. So long story short, she broke her leg. She was in the hospital. I happened to be on vacation that week. I spent a lot of time at the hospital, and I don't know if that proved to her, that I'm the real deal and I care and I'm a good person and I was there because I wanted to be there. Ever since then, she has just completely changed her outlook and her attitude, and now we have a significantly better relationship. So, um, I'm grateful for that. I've had people who, know how she was, how she's been my entire life, and they ask me, how can you just forgive her? Like, how can you just let it go? She deserves to blah blah. I can't sit here and say, for my entire life, I've wanted a better relationship with her. So when the opportunity presents itself, why in God's name would I not take advantage of that? So I'm grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, and that's the point, right? Like that is breaking the curse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I did write a couple things down. And one of the things I had written down is because of how she treated me my whole life, she taught me everything I didn't want to be in a mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have an awesome relationship with my boys. They're now 25 and 23. They're adults. Um, I'm not going to say I was a perfect mom. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I don't. There is one, but I was strict on them. I was hard on them. I to this day they give me a hard time because I would write up, make homework sheets for them over the summer and make them do homework over the summer so they didn't have to catch back up again in August. Come on, I'm doing this for you. But yeah, so I mean, we disciplined them and made them mind, and we had rules and made them follow. But it's so awesome when they're adults and they're responsible and they're good people, and you can be their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Wow. That's an awesome story. Well, I feel like the ending is wonderful. Um, I think the biggest thing that actually is that I'm having a moment on, right? Me personally is reforming that relationship, right? Because that is breaking the curse. You know what I mean? And that's important. I feel like a lot of um I feel like that will actually help a lot of people, um, me included.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I you still have moments when you go toe to toe with people for whatever reason, but the way I react now compared to the way I reacted 10, 15 years ago is completely different. I
Mhm.
try to my kids, when you come at things from a place of love, it
Mhm.
makes the world of difference.
Yeah, from a place of understanding and being able
Yeah,
to see where somebody is, right? And
yeah,
knowing, like your self-awareness, maybe somebody else is not as self-aware as you may be, but you can see that and you can understand and move from that space. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I think
I-
that. empathy and walking in somebody else's shoes. That has served me a ton. Yeah, there have been different situations. I have managed people for, many, many years, and having that empathy for people and approaching them from the aspect of help me understand instead of why aren't you getting to work on time? Why aren't you doing your job? Why help me understand what's going on? And it has really made a difference in many, many relationships, productivity, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people feel seen that way, right? And they feel respected and they feel understood,
Yes,
because we never know what people are dealing with. And on my journey, I have learned, that, complex trauma really does a number and it affects people in so many different ways. And you really have no idea what somebody has experienced or been through. And so, yeah, it really is like best practice to move from a place of understanding and to really try to, have those conversations rather than just assuming or, making accusations and moving from a place of judgment, right? Um,
exactly.
yeah,
They're just going to get defensive and you're not solving anything.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
because chances are they may be, in survival mode, right? And that's where that defensiveness comes from because they, shields go up, right? Yeah. Wow.
absolutely.
Wow. You answered my questions because I'm like going through it and I'm like thinking, okay, so I'm gonna ask this, when and then the answer would come. And that you know what I mean? So
Well, thank God, because I felt like I was rambling and all over the place. And like I said, life and I don't know, just summing it up in a few words, it feels so, I don't know. And why do I even care about that? Why do I care how it feels or how it sounds or whatever? It is what it is. But I do have to tell you about this crazy, crazy, crazy encounter I had. So, probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, it doesn't matter. My husband at the time and I were bored on a Saturday night and just driving around in the middle of the country. And we were driving down this road. He was driving and I was on the passenger side, and he had kind of a taller truck. And I thought I saw something up in the sky.
Mm.
And I just barely caught a glimpse. And I said, and it was on my side. And I said, "Oh my gosh, what was that?" And he said, "I don't know. I didn't see it." And we're bending over trying to, I said, "Pull over, pull over, pull over." So we pulled over, and, the telephone poles are probably, I don't know, 25, 30 feet off the ground. I don't know. There was this, I call it the fireball in the sky, but it wasn't fire. It was a ball of energy that was, I mean, you could see the it was barely moving, but the movement it was making was just like the energy of it. It wasn't really fire, but it was the color of like a really hot fire, that orangish, whitish, reddish, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so we got out and we're just standing there and we're looking at this thing. Like if you could just take your arms and stretch them out, it was probably about that wide. So 5, 6 feet around. And it was just hovering there just above the power lines. And it hovered and for probably, I don't know, 15 seconds. And then out of nowhere, it literally just shot into the atmosphere. And we could see it like the tail of we could see the trail of it leaving. But out of within 2 seconds, we couldn't see it anymore. It was the craziest thing.
That
So
is wild.
it was wild. And it's one of those things where when people talk about having sightings of anything, you're like, okay, well, I mean, I believe you because I know you and respect you, and that's cool, but okay. But when you
Yeah.
see it for, you're like, holy shit, who's going to believe this?
Right, right. I'm trying to imagine it, but that's insane. So you said it was like about
Yeah.
5 or 6 feet in like diameter. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to imagine. You said it was like above the power lines.
Yeah.
That's
Just barely. Yeah, and you would think that with energy, you would think it would interfere with the power lines, that there would be, surges of, I don't know. But so we drove home and we're just in silence because we're just in awe of what we just saw. And my husband said, let's get online and surely other people. I said, I am not becoming part of some crazy ass. No, I know what I saw, and people can believe me or not. I'm okay with them not. I get it. It's hard to imagine, but yeah. So he had said, maybe it was an alien or this, that, the other, and I said it could have been. I said, but what if it was like spiritual? What if it was energy? What if it was God or my mom and he had lost a son when he was 18? What if
Oh,
it was your son? I
yeah.
don't know. Never closed myself off to the possibility of anything that it could have been.
Yeah. Yeah, because who knows, right? Like, um, things manifest in interesting ways. Um, but what a cool experience.
It was crazy. I've had crazy experiences. I can remember laying in bed one night and I swear I heard the faintest, most beautiful, glorious chorus of angels singing. I wasn't listening to anything, It brought tears to my eyes. It was just, yeah, I've had several things that have happened that have really touched me in that way. So it's made me wonder, am I more connected than I've ever thought? Or, I shouldn't say give myself credit for that. I don't know. It's just made me wonder.
Yeah, that when you said that, it kind of immediately I jumped to that to like the Claire audience, being able to hear the chorus like that. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
that's very cool. But oh man, I every time you talk about stuff, my hair stands up on my arms. Um,
Well, when I
yeah, that
moved,
is what an
oh, I'm sorry.
experience that would be too. Like,
Hmm.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, I really wish I would have taken the time. I didn't think we would talk about this stuff, but I wish I would have taken the time to write more things down.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
I got divorced last year and moved into my own place, and I'm so at peace now. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like my life is just culminating into just such a more peaceful, enjoyable, blissful environment. But when I first moved in, I found out that a young gentleman had hung himself in the tree in my front yard.
Oh,
And so when the boys they had helped me, obviously being young adult men. And one of them asked me, Mom, does it bother you knowing that guy hung himself, at your house? And I said, no, buddy. And I'll tell you why. Because for me, for people like I know people who say suicide is the ultimate sin and it's so selfish. How can you do that to your friends and family or whatever?
mhm.
And having been at the bottom of the barrel, I can appreciate the feeling of hopelessness. There's no worse feeling in the world than the feeling of hopelessness. And so I believe that his spirit knows my spirit and knows that I have total empathy for him not knowing another way out or just wanting that relief. I mean, hell, I want relief now too, but like this place is crazy. I want out of here.
Right. And it just keeps getting crazier by the day, right? You know what I mean? What a
Exactly.
time to be alive. Um, but I agree. I honestly feel like chances are like your spirits like probably like manifested each other, right? Like there was probably like some sort of like contract. My guess is he's like protecting your house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
That's
love that.
very cool.
Well,
That
and
is
you had to the Claire audience or whatever in your reading just the other night, you were talking about getting signs, seeing signs, different things, and you had mentioned a book, and I have actually, for a totally different reason, decided to start writing a book, and so different readings that you do, and there are a couple other folks that I listen to. You wouldn't believe the notes I have in my phone that I'm like, my gosh, I have to find an app that manages all these notes because it's going hog wild. I don't I don't know if there's a limit to iPhone's notes, but
I'm not sure. I haven't reached it yet, so
there are times when it kind of blinks out on me and I'm like, no, 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 please no.
right? Like, could you imagine losing them all? My
No,
goodness.
that'd be
Whew.
devastating.
Yeah.
So
Well, you'll definitely whenever you get that book done, you'll definitely have to let me know.
will probably be one of the first because um, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. I don't say a whole lot. There are a lot of times when I'm on your lives, and I know I have sent you multiple emails, and I've gotten the hint that you're not an email girl and that you have a big audience now, and it's a big collective, and we all just absolutely adore you. So I don't say that a lot in the chat like all the other folks do, but I want you to know that you touch more lives than you could possibly imagine. And and
Thank you.
you're doing good things, girl. You really are. To the depth of, some of the messages that you give, you can't possibly know what they mean to some people, but they do. And what you're doing is amazing, and you are amazing. And I know that you have struggled with the trolls and the nasty people, and you've handled it all with grace, but they're the minority. The majority of us truly appreciate you and your gifts and your heart, and we're so grateful for you.
I'm so grateful for you and for everyone. Truly. I mean, you guys give me a space to be that, right? And to be in purpose and to share my gifts and just to be my authentic self. So um my gratitude for you guys is also ginormous. um and I hope that that shows. And yeah, I apologize that I am not an email girly.
No,
uh
I just had to learn.
yeah, I try to when I really got it, when because a lot of you just kind of all showed up at once, right? I had a smaller collective that was kind of with me for a couple years, right? And then last year, in June-ish, you all just kind of like showed up, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Like I just want to hold space, and I want to, like, like just be everything for everyone. And I couldn't do it. And probably if I had like, I think about this often. I'm like, well, if I had like a partner, right? Because I'm doing all these different things, more than just this, right? Like, um, and my main priority is being a mother. And so, uh, yeah, I try really hard,
It
but
shows.
I love you guys so much. And, yeah, so thank you, because honestly, like, it helps me keep going when I hear that, because, I still suffer from imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like, and things like that sometimes. And you're right. Sometimes I don't understand or know the impact, that I feel like that the messages that come through, have, or hold. And I kind of got that lesson. I learned that lesson a little bit when I went on that trip recently.
Right.
Um, and I
I could
met
tell.
that,
Yeah, I
yeah,
could tell different.
yeah. And I was like, okay, whoa, now I get it. All right. So, um, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the people that do come into the comments and, they're just ass wipes, if you will. Sorry. It's the same thing. Like, honey, what's going on in your life? Just try to open your heart. And so you have to have empathy for them because you know there has to be something not healed for them to be jealous or mean or, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
they don't deserve our time.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And um yep. And sometimes my ego wants to chime in and just
Right.
really
Right.
just,
Right.
but I'm getting better.
You handle them well when you say, I pray for you. I don't know what's going on, but get the hell out.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why, because I know that, like, on this journey it's like God is continuously preparing me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like little bits at a time, right? Because there are going to be, as the channel continues to grow and things like that, everyone's got an opinion, right? And I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And there's going to be those people that feel like they need to say something because it makes them feel better, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and so I feel like this slow growth is actually serving me very well. And I'm grateful to Yahweh every single day for the slow growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable and just spending time. And I'm certain that this is definitely going to help a lot of people. Um, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it too. I just, I guess the moral of the story is there's hope, you know, no
Mhm.
matter how you're treated, no matter how bad your life is or was, give God the glory and just soften your heart to people and, just, I don't know, be a good person, be kind. It's so
Yeah.
much better.
I mean, and at the end of the day, I feel like that's the whole, people are looking for, this like deeper meaning. And there's all these things that we could really look for, right? There's deeper meaning, or a way to live. And I feel like kindness, it's just,
Yes.
if you could just be kind to your neighbor, right? That like,
Yeah.
or anyone for that
Yeah.
matter, then you're doing something right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank
Awesome.
you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Nice to finally meet you.
Yes, you too. And for those of we've been back and forth. People have no idea. We planned this what, weeks ago?
Yeah, a while. I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like the divine timing is always perfect. And yeah, I
That's right.
appreciate you. And for all of you watching, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Bye bye.